Hello, I am Ashley Tullis, and professionally, I'm a realtor with Realty One Group Mountain Desert. But today, I'm just another citizen of Flagstaff, and we are on the quest for common sense. So we have Korina Maestas here with us today. Hi, Korina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course, good to have you. Before we jump into our common sense, why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit about your background here in Flagstaff?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks again for having me. I've been in Flagstaff. This year will be 10 years, so a whole decade already. Previously, I was a public school teacher and then opened up Kaibab Behavioral Services and got my board certification in behavior analysis. So we provide ABA therapy to all of northern Arizona. We serve 5 different counties. Majority of our clients are here in Flagstaff. We have several in the Prescott area as well. And then about 2 years ago, we had clients that were really struggling in the public school system. So I opened up a small micro school for kids with disabilities called Rising Mountain Academy. And then kind of in between those ventures, I had a couple of my own kids. So motherhood has been, a priority in my life. My oldest is going to be 7 in a couple of weeks, and my youngest is 4.5. And just this past year in 2025, wrote and published my first book called On a Mother Level. That's kind of me in a nutshell.
So it sounds like a lot of different things.
Yes.
Teaching, behavioral, therapy, becoming a mom yourself, which is, a full-time job in itself.
Yes. Yes, very
So,
much.
well, cool. It's good to hear about your background. What is your common sense that you would like to share with us today?
My common sense today, this past year in 2025, I turned 40. And so there's all of these memes and things I see on social media about turning 40. It might have been Mel Robbins that posted it, but she says you spend the first 40 years learning life's lessons and the rest of however many implementing them. And that just feels so true. And the lesson and the common sense I want to share today is really showing up as your authentic self. Just this idea of being really who you are on the inside, and that the world needs more of you, who you are authentically, and not who you think you might need to be, for social media or for anybody else really.
I like that. The world needs who you are authentically,
Mhm.
because we see all these different things that we're pressured into being this way or that way, or we're not good enough here. But the world literally needs to see people as they are.
Mhm.
So I think that's really important to talk about. And it is common sense, but again, we're here just trying to inspire people and say this common sense again because people forget and people need reminded and people need to implement these things into their lives because maybe we know it in the back of our brain, but are we implementing it? So how do we show up as our true authentic selves?
That it's a journey. I think it's a journey. You can't just say it, right? It's like something you have to feel and be comfortable with. I would say, in my first 40 years of life, I really spent a lot of time recovering from childhood trauma. I also, I have ADHD. I was diagnosed when I was 5. So there was a lot of like rejection sensitivity I had to work through, and really working really hard to be enough. Sometimes I was too much for other people, being really hyperactive and impulsive, or not being enough for some people, and really always trying to be somebody that I wasn't to make connection with other people was really difficult for me. Now fast forward to 40, I feel like I'm finally comfortable in my skin and my creative self, and I really just enjoy putting it out there because especially when it comes to parenting, there's just so many things that you go through as a parent that you could feel so much shame around, like, go down the shame cycle and all these things. But really, being who you are is what the world needs, as well as being as in parenting too. So like your kid needs you as a parent to show up as your best self, not the mom that always has a clean house, although I have to say having a clean house is important to me for my nervous system having ADHD.
Yes.
But not having the perfect lifestyle and not showing up on social media where everything is put in place all of the time. And it doesn't mean don't share the good things. The good things are so important to share and they keep us going and motivated. But I think showing up as who we really are and talking about the things that are really hard, especially when it comes to parenting, is just so important. And Ashley, I know you and I have talked a little bit before about education as a background that you and I both share. And I say the same in teaching too, because teaching, when you thinking about like having a regulated nervous system and all of that, when you're a teacher, you're responsible for lots of other people's humans in one class, and you may or may not have the ability to step out to take a quick break if you're, I call them the hot buttons, but if your hot buttons are triggered. So say that a kid does something that really irks you. Maybe it's shouting out, maybe it's kicking you, maybe it's spitting in your face. There's a lot of different behaviors that can happen, I think, that trigger teachers. And if you don't have the ability to step out and really regulate your nervous system, it's really tough. So I like to just hold space for those conversations with teachers too. And what can you do? What can you plan ahead of time too? So when those things happen, you can take care of your own self so you can respond to kiddos in a way that makes you proud. So very similar to parenting in some ways.
Yep. And teaching is similar. I'm not a parent, but I imagine it could be similar, but also very different, right? As a teaching scenario, you're in a classroom with maybe 30 or more students of any age, whether it's kindergarten or seniors in high school. These students all have their own emotional things that are going on. You're trying to regulate them. You're trying to regulate yourself. So you definitely need, at least in teaching, like a buddy teacher saying, hey, come on over real quick, watch my class if you can, which you always can't do that. I mean, the school system needs some help. But even as people, like, it's really hard to just show up as our authentic selves by talking about the real things that we are feeling. Sometimes I notice that people will share the good things, share their goals, share what they're excited about, but it's really a struggle for people to talk about, maybe some of the negatives. What are they struggling with? What's really going on? How are they feeling deep down?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we hold space for those conversations and we're able to work through them better, then we have more tools. Like, for example, as a parent or a teacher, if you have hot buttons and you know what they are, and you plan for something that you can do to take care of yourself in that moment, if you can't tap out, whether if you're a parent and you go in the bathroom and cry for like 5 minutes, or you're a teacher and you need to just like, I don't know what, it depends on your situation too as a teacher and what you're able to do. If you could tag somebody in, great. If you can't, what is available to you and what is helpful to you? Is it taking deep breaths? Is it taking your whole class on a quick walk and everybody goes outside and gets vitamin D for like an extra recess? What are those things? And the thing that I think is so important to share is that a dysregulated adult cannot regulate a child. And I love that quote because if we don't take care of ourselves, then we can't show up and respond the way that makes us proud at the end of the day.
Very true. And taking care of ourselves, it looks like taking steps like preventative care, right? We're not just going to wake up every day and like, if you didn't drink any water and you scrolled on social media all night and you didn't get any exercise and you stayed inside your house, like that meme that's going around, that's how a lot of people kind of behave, right? So we have to make sure that we're taking the steps necessary to take care of ourselves and to plan that in advance. To say, okay, I'm going to do my yoga in the morning, whether it's 5 minutes or if it's 35 minutes, whatever I've got time for, because that helps to regulate me for the whole entire day.
Yeah.
Or one thing that I do is if I'm feeling really emotional or something, I will just start chugging some water. I will just sit there and I'll drink a whole bottle of water because that just is like, I'm feeling it like in my body, it needs some taking care of.
Yeah, 1,000%.
So what other ways can we live more authentically? Like one thing I like to do is journaling. and spending some quiet time to ourselves, because oftentimes we're taking care of other people, all the time, surrounded by other people. So if we have time to be alone with ourselves, with our thoughts, I think journaling's one really good way to do it. I have a journal. I've always kept a journal. I have my journals from when I was like in middle school.
Yeah.
So I have like a big stack of them. So that's something that consistently really helps me.
Yeah, writing is really important. In fact, I have my book right here, and I wanted to mention it because it came from a space after I had my second kiddo. And when you become a parent, this all gets like exponentially harder, right? You have your humans to take care of, and for me personally, I run two businesses, and then I've got my kiddos, and so it's tough because when I had my second kid, the analogy I like to give is like, think about a dried out rubber band. When you have a dried out rubber band and you try to stretch it, what happens? It breaks. It breaks. And so it's how I felt after I had my second kiddo. And my son at the time, he's also diagnosed ADHD, and he was very difficult as a toddler. There was a lot of physical aggression. So I have this brand new baby. My son is, really struggling. Also, something that parents don't talk about is like having to grieve the relationship with your first kiddo as well, because it's no longer just you, right? You've got another baby you've got to take care of. So there's just all these, and then you've got your hormones and all these things, right? So I started blogging because I would find myself in these emotional spaces. Essentially, it was journaling, but I just put it out there. I just shared it with anybody who wanted to read it, because I felt if another mom could relate to what I'm going through, maybe there's some value in having this conversation and opening up this space. On a Mother Level is really short. It's a tiny little book, made to be easy to read. But the reason I mention it is because each chapter has a different focus. Like, for example, the first one really focuses on the hard things that you don't want to say out loud. And that could relate to anything. It could be parenting, teaching, whatever it is, that you're going through in your life. And then there is a reflection prompt to just write it down. So the thing that you feel shameful potentially, I hate using that word, but something that like it scares you to write it down, or you feel bad writing it down, or you feel guilty for thinking it. Like, you are human, and everybody has human thoughts. And the more space that we hold for not rejecting it and just giving it space, maybe not giving it too much attention, but just letting it live there and not judging it and then moving on from it, I think is really helpful. And the more that I have opened up that space with other moms or other teachers, it's been a good opportunity to have those conversations, even if you're not solving a problem, right? Even if you can't solve somebody's problem on giving them a break when they're in the middle of teaching 30 kids. It really helps to talk about it. One, we know that we're human and it's not just us. We're not crazy or inhuman or any other negative. There's no negativity around being human and having human thoughts. We all have them. And I think when we can acknowledge them and write them down and not judge them and just move on and figure out like, how do we move forward, then we find ourselves moving in a better space with it. It's not so heavy. It's easy to pick up and carry.
Yeah. And that's really impressive that you were able to just put that on a blog and just put that out there. I'm always really impressed with people who can just do that and they just type their emotions out and they put it out, because it is really hard to allow yourself to be seen with those imperfections, because we think that we have to hold on to this thought. Oh, I've had this thought one time. Or even if it's a recurring thought, I have to hold on to it. And if I tell anyone about this, then it just solidifies it more. But in reality, if we have this feeling or thought and we tell someone about it, then we can start to do something about it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to even see sometimes that you are able to do something about it. Sometimes it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one in the world who feels like this.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that can be done. So I'm just going to push through and pull myself up by my bootstraps type of thinking. But We need that community, and we need people who maybe are older and have experienced that, or even if they haven't, just someone to listen to us.
Yeah, and it can just be so isolating to live, on your own little private island with that thought and not share it. And like an example that I will always give is when I did have my second kiddo, I wanted for like at least during the fourth trimester, nothing to do, I shouldn't say nothing, but like very little to do with my older kiddo and my husband as far as they were concerned, or anybody else. Like, let me just take my baby and run away and we're going to live under a rock here forever. It's a very real thought. And of course, there's so many things that go into that too, like your hormones and the postpartum stuff and all of that. But it's such a normal thought. But the more that I found, like, if I just say it out loud, then other people are like, oh my gosh, I felt like that too, and I felt so guilty, or I felt so bad for thinking that. But in reality, it's so normal, right? And that's I think that's where I really started to be more authentic as myself, was becoming a parent. And just, it's hard. It's really hard. And a lot of times you don't get any preparation for the things that are the hardest, like those things. And then another thing too is when my son got diagnosed with ADHD, there's so many behaviors that prevail from his diagnosis that resemble mine as a child. And it's a very weird, there's research that goes into this. I would butcher it if I tried to share it, but there's some research that shows that when you have a kiddo that presents a lot like you, it also is very triggering. So then you also have to find this space of being a nurturing parent or a nurturing teacher, when you feel triggered by something, and it's like you want to protect your kid, but also you feel this like dysregulation in your body around it. And that is a really tough space to navigate, because your own nervous system is dysregulated, yet how do you show up as the parent you really want to be? And so that's like, for me, where the work has been pretty difficult as a parent.
I could imagine. Because it is like looking at your own childhood right in front of you, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, now I'm the adult.
Yeah.
So it's probably, a huge feeling there.
Well, and
But
then also wanting your kid to have we always want our kids to have a better experience than we did. So,
yeah,
yeah.
but that's a good thing to strive for, and at least you can tell yourself, and you can always say, hey, I'm trying my best. I'm hoping that my kid has a better experience than I did. And, you can only do what you can do in that moment. So
Right.
I think it's important, honoring your feelings, to be able to express them genuinely, and then to align your actions, right? Choose activities that resonate with your authentic self.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
important too, activities, relationships, environments, so that you're actually actively doing those things, like we said before, to maintain that, because you have to maintain everything. Because if you just forget, if you let your emotions fall to the wayside, then, a big burst can be coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's kind of change it up a little bit. As a mom and someone who's built a business and written a book here in Flagstaff, can you just share a story with us, maybe a high moment, a messy moment, or something that surprised you that just helped to shape you who you are today?
Oh, I've been putting in a lot of work in 2025, so there's a lot of like self-awareness I have around my journey and how I got to where I am today. And don't get me wrong, it's going to be a lifetime of work, right? If we stop working on ourselves, then that's a disservice to not only us, but everyone around us. Like I said, the first 40 years, I really spent a lot of time being somebody that I wasn't, trying to be enough for other people and feeling, well, why is this happening to me? I had a lot of like victimization attitude. Why me? Why has this happened to me? Why am I not loved? Why does this person not like me? Why am I not good enough for them? And the more that I've gotten more comfortable with who I really am in my creative self, instead of always asking, why am I not enough? Why this? I finally have recently kind of changed, like shifted the question I'm asking. And my new question now is, how can I appreciate more of the love in my life right now? So thinking about, and I have so much to be grateful for. And have you ever had this experience where you have so much to be grateful for, but sometimes you don't feel grateful? Have you ever felt like that? I mean, I think everybody probably feels like that at some point, and then I feel guilty around that, and then there goes the shame cycle again, right? Rinse, lather, repeat. So trying to focus on the love I have right now in my life has shifted a lot of things, actually. And with the book, this was a really good reminder, because I kind of felt like when the book came out, when I published it, I felt really isolated, honestly. It was a really interesting experience to go through, thinking that, this is like the wrong way to put it, but where could this take me, right? And instead of it taking me somewhere I wanted to go, I felt like it took me somewhere I didn't want to go, which was not feeling fulfilled in my accomplishment and feeling isolated. So that made me feel like, it made me feel really alone, honestly. And it made me feel like, okay, well, this isn't enough, or I'm not enough, or whatever the case. So being able to shift, like, really, this is a huge focus of mine, even in just the last few months, but thinking about any time that I want to feel love, it's within my control. I can do that by hugging my kids, spending time with my husband, or going for a walk, or laying with my dogs. There's ways that I can choose to find love, and we can actually feel love when we give it. And so one thing I had realized was that I was looking, in order for myself to feel love, I was looking for it from other people in other ways. And so one of the biggest revelations I've had is that I can find it anytime I want it. I don't have to depend on somebody doing X, Y, and Z to feeling good enough. So that has really helped me to be more authentic and to really appreciate, Korina here at 40. And along the way too, is appreciating the growth and the journey of the growth through the process is so important. Like I've been in therapy for, probably most of my life, trying to work through a lot of things with ADHD and, childhood trauma and things like that. But appreciating the journey and how we got here is so important, but also acknowledging and appreciating the hard things that happened that may have caused trauma are so important too. Like, the things that I went through as a kid, having rejection sensitivity and growing up with ADHD was really difficult, but it's made me now a really sensitive leader in my businesses, but it's also led me down the journey of supporting individuals with disabilities, which is really, really, really important. And my own experience in school was difficult. So, being a teacher and now running a school for all of our kiddos are neurodivergent, but giving them the space to really feel safe and comfortable and walking into school because they want to be there and because they're motivated to work, not just because they have to go to school. So I'm kind of going down a tangent, but I think that's it, is just really accepting the beautiful you that you are and the journey that brought you here. Because without acknowledging and appreciating that journey, you wouldn't be who you are, and like Ashley, your life, everything that you've gone through has brought you here to leading this podcast and being a realtor in Flagstaff. So it's just kind of appreciating the journey along the way and all the lessons that come with it.
Honoring the journey of how we got here, it is really interesting to me to think about, like, every single decision helped us get to where we're at, right? Like, I love Flagstaff. I love being a realtor. I get to help people find homes or sell their homes. These are huge things in people's lives. But every single tiny little step helped me to get here. Like, I went to Missouri Western State University in St. Joseph, Missouri, and I grew up there, and I did my music education degree. But without that degree, I wouldn't have been able to get my job in Sholo, Arizona, where I was a band teacher. And if I hadn't got that job, I probably wouldn't be here in Flagstaff. And if I wasn't in Flagstaff, like if I was in St. Joe, I don't know if I'd be doing real estate. Flagstaff's, I'm passionate about it. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous. So, you know, I like that. You also mentioned about sometimes if we're isolating, we have to find that gratitude in ourselves and find that love within ourselves. One thing too is if we're isolating ourselves and we're feeling bad, well, you probably have at least 100 contacts in your phone, you
Yeah.
know, family members, old friends from high school. You could just call someone up and, maybe they won't answer. That's fine. Give them a text. But you could just call anyone because if you think about it, maybe that person who you're texting or calling is feeling isolated too.
Yeah.
So, if we're feeling isolated in ourselves, it's really easy to fall deeper and deeper into that like spiral. But we have to think and catch ourselves real quick. And even if it's just scrolling through your contacts and picking a name and hitting call or hitting text, because reaching out to other people, I think, is one of the main themes that we've been talking here as well. Is that a lot of things are in ourselves. We find the love within ourselves, but we need to either show that love to someone else or talk to our problems about someone else. So I think the community is a big, big thing of it. To be able to be your authentic self in a community of other people being their true authentic selves.
Yeah, absolutely. It is difficult too, when you have a lot of balls in the air or a lot of hats to wear to make space for your friendships, but they are just so, they're so important. It really helps when you go through those tough days, whether it be like, an argument with your husband or negative interaction with the coworker. Who do you want to call when you leave work? Is it your best friend? Is it, I think having that support system is huge. It's vital for us as humans to have those connections.
It is. We can't just be all alone. It takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village for us as adults and just as people.
Yes, 1000%.
Well, this is really great. As we're kind of wrapping up here, I've got one last question for you. What gives you hope right now? Whether that's something in Flagstaff, something in the families that you support, or something in your own life.
Yeah, that's a really good one, and particularly because 2025 is a year of growth for me. There's a lot of talk. Tony Robbins talks about this. I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. But he talks about the seasons that people go through, both your business and you as a human too, experiencing the world, that we go through different seasons. And so both my business and myself, I think we're experiencing the season of winter in 2025. So winter is really a time where things are not fruitful. Financially in my business, things were really tough, which then trickles into my personal life, obviously, as the business owner. But it was an area that allowed me to spend time to innovate a little bit and to grow personally. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity because one thing it allowed me to identify was a new value that I'm bringing into 2026, which love and connection is always my top value. But another thing that's really important to me now is faith, and faith in the sense of knowing that everything will happen for me as it's supposed to, and not like, another thing Tony Robbins says that I love is that life happens for you and not to you. So having faith that that's true. Especially like if anyone listening here is a business owner or, runs an organization, the longer you do that, the more patterns that you're able to see. And it really helps you to not like freak out when you have a bad year. And it helps you to kind of understand what is the lesson in this situation? What do I have to learn from this? Anytime that we have any kind of breakdown or struggle, there has to be a lesson or a breakthrough on the other side, right? So what is the lesson in what the world, the universe, God, whatever you believe in has provided me? And so when I think about faith, I don't think about it in a religious aspect. I think about it in a way of like just trusting that things are happening the way that they are supposed to. And when you go through a winter season, you got to spend that time really planning for what are the seeds that you want to plant for spring, and really prepping for spring so that when your seeds become fruitful, you've got a good foundation to like really grow, if that makes sense.
That
So,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
My husband told me a story the other day about the raven, and he read this in a book that he's reading about having faith. And the raven doesn't wake up worrying, where am I going to get my next meal? Where am I going to sleep? The raven just has faith, and every single day it works out for the raven. So it can work out for us too. And he said in his story that he read that we are infinitely more important than the raven, as these big lives that we live, on
Right.
all these connections that we have. So things will work out for us. And even if, there's a challenge, I always try and turn it into an opportunity, right? This is a challenge, but it's really just an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for me to figure it out. And we also have to trust ourselves that we can figure it out. We can handle anything that is coming at us. So that is really important, that faith. I think that's a good thing for us to kind of wrap up on.
Yeah.
So, oh, one more thing, Korina, I know you told us a little bit about your business and your book, but for those who are listening, what's the easiest way for them to get in contact with you?
Well, yes, thank you for asking. I am on social media, so on a mother level 713 on Instagram, and just Korina Maestas on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn, a little bit on TikTok, but I'm not sure I want to live on the TikTok bandwagon, to be honest. I don't love TikTok. And then if you're interested too, the book can be found on Amazon, or I have copies here. You could get it directly through me, especially if you're local. And I'd be happy to sign it for you. And then both Kaibab Behavioral Services and Rising Mountain Academy are on social media, both Facebook and Instagram as well. And one just shameless plug, if you don't mind, is Rising Mountain Academy is a qualified charitable organization here in Flagstaff. And so if you need somewhere to spend your Arizona tax credit, it will provide 100% will go towards student scholarships, students with disabilities to be able to participate in our program and our summer camp. So we would be so grateful if you would choose us for your tax credit.
Well, I love that. I'm sure that people listening will reach out and kind of find you on the socials. So thanks for that. And this has been great. This has been really inspiring and uplifting. And I think people who are listening are going to go out into their days and just kind of have a little more pep in their step. So thank you so much, Korina, and we'll have to have you on again.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley.